Hello guys! Today it's Ememe team here and we will show how to create a character in the Ememe world. Okay, let's dig into it. First, you touch Create to create your character. Here you can select your VRM file, as you can see .vrm. Select that and shortly you will see your character. Now you're ready to select your thumbnail. This will be the image that everyone sees if your character is public. If your character is private, is the image that you will see and that represents your character. So scroll down and then touch this icon. You can select the image that you want. In this case, I will select this image. Here you go. You have your favorite image for your character. After you selected the thumbnail, it's the time for the background image. You can actually leave this blank or import your image. In this case, I will use a preset background because I like them. So since we are creating a teacher, the classroom will be the ideal place for her. And shortly you see the image loaded. This will be the background image that you will see is just behind the character that animates when you're chatting with him or her. So after you input your background image, it's time to input some basic informations. So first thing first, you can input your name, tagline, a description of your character, a greeting that your character will say, and the language. So this is the minimal set of information that you will need to reproduce your character efficiently. So the name could be whatever you want. Of course, if you are creating a public character, so for instance, Einstein or some famous characters, it's better to put the full name such that the AI could easily replicate, thanks to the name, the character itself. In this case, I will create an AI teacher assistant that I will call Emily Sensei. This will be the name. And as tagline, I will put AI teacher. The tagline is the description of your character. This will appear, for instance, in a public page and just under the name, and this will basically tell to other people what your character does. Description trait is instead a description of the character as it would be told by a third person or a friend of the character or the character himself. In this description, what you should write is actually what are the manner of your character, what is the particular personality trait. So maybe your character is funny, maybe your character is always cry, or can be whatever. In this field, you're actually supposed to provide what is the work that your character do. Maybe she's a teacher, maybe she's an astronaut, or so on. And actually, if you want, also what are the faults of your character. Maybe your character had some problem in his own life. So in this case, you should write it because this may be condition how the character responds to you. So for what regards description, I already prepared it. So this is the description of Emily Sensei. She's a tutor for aristocrats and naturally possesses perfect etiquette and graceful movements. She's expert about AI prompts and meme development and excel at really explaining AI because she's a teacher basically. Greeting is actually what the character says to you at the beginning of each chat. So my character, since she's a teacher, she will always say, "Good day, now let's begin the lesson." So every chat that you start, she will start with this. Greeting can be whatever. If you're planning to make a character which is a personality that depends on something or something that she says always, like a catchphrase, then you should write this in the greeting field. And for instance, if you're, instead of doing a character, you're just, creating an RPG player or something different, then maybe greeting, since it is the first message, maybe, hard destruction of your RPG role-playing game or whatever you can imagine. For what regard language, the last information, I will select the language which is consistent with my prompts. So if the name, tagline, description, greeting, and so on are all in English, I will put as language English. If those are in Japanese, you put Japanese. If those are in Italian, you put Italian. In general, language should be consistent with your prompts, and especially with the language you expect your character to talk. So after you provided your character model and the thumbnail, the background image, and especially the basic information, you're actually ready to create your character. You can just touch create and start to message with your character, and your character will animate. But sometimes the basic information are not enough. If you want to provide more detailed information, you must touch advanced setting. We will go through that. If you touch advanced settings, you have different traits which you can input. The age, the category, the innates, backstory, trait visibility, dialogue example, dialogue style, banned words, and visibility. If we start by age, you can input whatever number you want. So in this case, my teacher will be 25. Since Emily Sensei is a teacher, probably we can set her category as helper. Of course, there are different categories, but since she will mainly help people to understand prompt engineering, she will be in this category. This represents the inner personality of your character. And this is a summary of the personality of the character as a whole. I usually suggest to input no more than 2 innate traits. Of course, you can input whatever you want, but usually 2 are enough to really replicate your character. So since she's a teacher, then the personality will be a teacher-like personality. And since it's also a really delicate and aristocratic character, she may be a little introvert. So backstory is a piece of text that represents the memory of your character. So if the personality of your character was shaped after some memorable event in the past, then you should write these events here. So my character had some problem with his parents, and she graduated also university, and there are other stories. So I already prepared backstory and I just input like that. So as you can see, she was orphan, living in the streets, and so on and so forth. So this will be the backstory and what the character remembers about her past life. Trait visibility is a button in which you can select whenever your traits will be visible to the public or not. So if you want to hide all your traits and no one can see them, you just keep it private. Instead, if you want other people to take inspiration by your prompts, you set it as public. Dialogue example is, as the name says, an example dialogue between the user and the AI character. Here, you are somewhat forcing what the AI character is saying compared to the user. So if the user asks something, you're expected the AI to write in some way or have some characteristic way of replying. So in this case, if you have some catchphrase or something like that, you should input it here. So I already have some dialogue examples, so I will input that. For instance, my character is a teacher, so the user says good morning, and the teacher replies, good morning, sir. And the same for the second example. So dialogue example is the only one that should follow a specific format, and this format is double brackets, text, double brackets, double dot, and then other double brackets, text, and closing double brackets. The first represents the user input, and the second the fake AI reply. If you want to input a specific dialogue style, then dialogue style or style of response is the perfect field for you. So here what you should input is exactly how the character replies. So if the character is really polite and always reply with old-fashioned words, then you should write it here. And if the character reacted to some things from the user, then you should write it here as well. So in this case, my character reacts and talks always in a super polite way, and when the student is not attentive, then she replies in bold and she gets angry. So I already prepared dialogue style, and as you can see, she speaks in old-fashioned polite language such as good day and pardon me, and she gets angry and replies in bold if the students don't listen to her. Banned words is a field which represents the words that you don't want the character to mention and even the user to embark with. So if your user or whoever use your character talks about, for instance, marriage or suicide or violence, and you really don't want people to talk about that with your character, you should input this word here. So for instance, I don't want people to talk about marriage or suicide or violence with this character, so I input them like that. So finally, the last trait is visibility. Here you have that your character could be public, unlisted, or private. So public, everyone will see your character, and your character will be published in Explore Ememe in the first page. Private, you can only chat with your character, and no one, even though you share the link, can access to your character. Unlisted, instead, people can talk with your character if you share the link with them. So my character will be fully public.